So I want to welcome everybody to our part 2 of our 6-part training session for your Parent Educator Passport program. This is a very exciting program that helps to really start building a foundation for you as parent educators so that you have a lot of information and you are building your skill set along the way for helping to educate your students. In this mini workshop, we are going to move forward into introduction into organization and creating a chaos-free quote unquote class. Okay. Yes, it says class, but it starts with the letter C, and I was going for alliteration there. So this particular session is being recorded. If you need to rewatch at a later time, please contact me, reach out for the link. And if you are somebody who is watching this as a replay, it will be sad that you won't be able to be involved in the interactive parts of the workshop today, but they're there for you to see how it went down. All right, that was just a little side note for future viewers. All right, let's get started. Hopefully you have your notebook ready. As you know, my trainings are very much interactive notebook based, intended purposefully with a brain-based methodology to help you increase your comprehension of the content that you're taking in and applying and retaining that information. That's really important. And by doing this through the workshops, teaching you this way, you can help walk yourself through learning how to teach your students in this methodology that is really an amazing and simple way to increase comprehension and retention. You should have already signed up for your mega workshop for increasing comprehension and retention. That'll be the first mega workshop you will take after this 2-day training. Okay. All right. So we've got our notebooks set up. And as you always see my slides, there is a left side and a right side. This is to simulate the notebook process. The left side's always for application of what you just learned, and the right side is for content coming in. And as I mentioned in our previous workshop, it's really important that you always have a table of contents going. That's important because you're going to want to reference the information down the road, and it's a lot easier if you have a table of contents so you know exactly where to go. All right, so let's get started. Stop and think. How would you describe yourself? Put this in your mind. Put this in your mind. Are you A, ultra organized, like a Marie Kondo wannabe? And if you're ultra organized, you probably know who Marie Kondo is. B, are you a messiest hot mess ever, and you just need help like super quick and super fast? Or are you C, somewhere in the middle? Think about that and write it down in your notes. Okay, now that you've thought about it and you've written it down, go ahead, and if you feel comfortable this time, go ahead and share it in the chat right now. Woo, look at all these C's coming up. All right, I see a lot of C's. Lots of C's. Okay. Yeah, I think most of us are probably somewhere in the middle, but we always have an idea of where we want to aspire to be. Okay. An A, ooh, we've got an A in there. Good. Maybe you can give us some great tips today. Right on. And okay, well, we're here to support you. We're here to support you. If you put a B in there, it's okay. We're here to give you ideas and help support you. Right on. Okay, let's go ahead and move forward. Okay, so when we are getting organized for a chaos-free classroom, I mean, what it really boils down to is setting up your students for success. And in order to do that, the ultimate key goal is to help your child be able to focus in their learning environment. If your child does not have focus, then that's going to really hinder their ability to take in the content they need to learn, right? That they need to comprehend, that they will need to remember down the road. It's very difficult to learn when you're not focused, and it can be a big, or I should say a big part of that is self-discipline. That's really, really key. very important to be able to do. So setting your student up for success so they can have that self-discipline is so important. And some of the ways we do that are keeping an eye on the prize every single day. Every single day. How do we do that? Well, we start off with a daily agenda. Okay, as educators and actually students too, but we have a daily agenda and we make sure the students are aware of that agenda. No surprises. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. And with that daily agenda, it's important to really identify what are the goals and priorities of the day. Okay, that's really important because that's how you keep the eye on the prize. When you know what the goals and priorities are, you know what to focus on, and you know that you need to stay disciplined in order to achieve those goals of the day as a student. But as a parent educator, you need to be mindful of that too, because you need to get in there to support and assist so that your student can stay focused, right? So that's part of your job, is to help your child, help your students focus on those daily goals and priorities. And a big part of that is limiting outside distractions. And this includes social media, siblings playing loudly, emails, texts, all that kind of stuff that are coming in. And I'm not just talking about with your students, okay? I'm talking about you too, as a parent educator. And some of you just went, oh man, but it's true. It starts with you. It starts with us as educators. We need to model limiting distractions, okay? That is really important. And when our students see that we limit those distractions, because they can oftentimes, the things that are distracting us are distracting our students. And so when they see that you are making a concerted effort to eliminate those distractions, then they feel like, okay, I get it. I see them doing it. And I'm going to do it as well, because I see the difference. I feel the difference. There is a difference when you limit or eliminate, preferably, distractions. Okay. And probably all of you are nodding right now, going, yep, makes sense. Makes sense. So what I want you to do right now, here's a little teaching strategy. We call it a 3-2-1. And what I want you to do first is I want you, on the left-hand side of your notebook, I want you to list 3 distractions of your environment right now. What 3 distractions do you currently have? And don't worry, I'm not going to have you share that out with everybody. That's private for you. Okay, so don't feel like, oh no, she's going to put me on the spot and I'm going to have to tell everybody. No. Just tell yourself though. Write it down. Help it become very concrete to you and your mind that these are 3 distractions that you have in your environment. Okay. And then I'm going to want you, once you do that, because I'm going to give you some time to work on this. These are the directions. I want you to do this first, right up here with the cloud. Okay. Then in your notes, I want you to list out 2 distractions you're going to make a priority to correct. And as you are listing those out, be mindful, because then I'm going to want you to start today. I want you to circle one of these 2 priorities that you will start correcting today. All right, so I'm going to mute myself and you're going to go ahead and work on this for a couple of minutes and we will move forward. Okay, we're going to start moving forward. So you listed out your 3 distractions, and maybe you feel like you've got more than that. And you know what? That's okay. You can list more than 3. That's all right. That just means that you are really being a lot more mindful about your environment and how your child or children are going to be able to focus in that environment. You're setting them up for success by really analyzing the distractions that you have in your environment, okay? And then by listing just baby steps of a couple of the distractions you're going to make a priority to correct right away, that's huge. And by starting today, that just gets the ball rolling. Very important to get that ball rolling on it now before school starts, right? So now, where I do want you to share is in the chat. I want you to now listen very carefully to my direction right now. Listen very carefully. In the chat, I want you to list one tip you have decided to, or you have, I'm sorry, one tip you have for helping to stay focused, because I know a lot of you have some great tips. So go ahead and list it in the chat, but do not hit submit until I say to hit submit, okay? So wait. So go ahead and type it in, but don't hit enter. Don't submit it yet. This is called a cascade chat, all right? So go ahead and type that out. Okay, ready? Hit submit. Woo! It's always so fun. It's always so fun to see all those chats coming in all at once. This is great. Now, there's a few reasons why we do this as they are coming in. We do cascade chats as educators. This is a really great online technique, actually. And we do this so that our students aren't so busy looking at what other people are typing in that they can't focus on what they need to type in. Okay, we want it to be authentic, coming from their heart. So that's important. So when we do a cascade chat, we do that to limit the distraction. And then we can go in and take a look. So let's go ahead and scroll up there. It looks like somebody put in, let's see, cut the background noise. Yes, creating a quiet environment. Turn on your phone, do not disturb mode. Oh, yes. In fact, I want to double check mine. It rang the other day, right about this time in the session last week. So yes, I have it on quiet, on mute. List. Oh yes. Time, set timer. These are all fabulous tips. Fabulous. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Separate room for the distracted kiddo to go into, or put on an educational show for the toddler. Sure. And if you have headphones for the toddler watching the educational show, that kind of helps the distraction right there too. Oh, these are fantastic. Yes, 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 yes. Wow, fantastic, everybody. Give yourselves a pat on the back. Good job. Those are great tips. And I noticed a lot of them were about the phone. And you know, these days our phone is so much, right? And it is a big distraction. All right, good job. Let's move forward. Okay, so how can you help your student to be prepared? Well, when educating your children, it doesn't really have to be messy. It just starts with making sure you teach your child how to get prepared, which actually starts with you as the educator. So one of our pro tips is to backwards plan. And what we do is we start off with the entire year and we do an outline for the year of what are the main content areas we're teaching, and we start backwards. We make sure we get in all the must-haves, you know, and then we squeeze in whatever else we can. But all the deal breakers, if you will, are always mapped out for the entire year. And we also, write this down, we also build in wiggle room. So for example, if I know I absolutely have to finish a unit by, let's say, October 30th, no matter what, and I have no idea what day October 30th lands on this year, so just just go with it for a minute. Then what I will do is in my schedule, I will actually schedule that assessment or the unit to end and the assessment to be taken by the 28th. I give myself 2 days right there. Okay. And sometimes in between the different chapters of the unit, I will give myself an extra wiggle room day in between each chapter. Why? Because life happens. And sometimes we can have the best laid plans, and because life happens, it can kind of try to send us sideways. Well, when you build in wiggle room, it won't derail you. Okay, it won't derail you, but you have to build that in. And so that is a big, big reason why we as professional educators backwards plan for the year. It's better to have more time than not enough time, because oftentimes we run out of time. Okay. So I've given you a little illustration on the left-hand side, and I'm encouraging you to line out yourself a schedule for your family and give everybody a different color or different color for different activities and so forth. Okay. So that's really helpful when each person in your family has their own color code system for their different activities and meetings and appointments and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So start a rough draft right now on that left-hand side. And if you need to come back and fill it in more later, that's fine. You're working on this to get an idea of how this works. All right. Okay. So moving forward, what we do is we have weekly goal setting. Remember, I talked about how important that goal setting, daily goal setting is for helping your students stay focused. Well, for working through the year, we have weekly goals. So we know what we need to achieve each week. And that's not always scholastic. Sometimes it's, okay, there's no way we can miss your orthodontist appointment this week, or, oh, wow, you've got a gymnastics meet on this day or whatnot. So what is really a great thing to do is to have a family meeting each week and discuss what's coming up for that week. I did do this with my own children. And actually, even though they're grown adults, we do still meet on a regular basis just to touch base with each other and find out what's going on and so forth. And when things are starting to really get busy, even us as adults, we do meet up for that kind of stuff, but not nearly as much as what we used to do when they were little. So, and when they were in school. But every week, actually for us, for our family, it worked best to do it every Sunday evening for dinner. We had family dinner time and family meeting. And so we would go over the week ahead. And like I mentioned, as a result of doing that, even though my children are now grown adults and they're off in their careers and all that, ever so often they need to call a family meeting, and nobody is reticent about it. It's like, okay, let's jump in, let's talk. So it builds a really great foundation for continuing communication and keeping each other in touch with what's going on, even through adulthood. So that's a good thing. All right. Now, also, I've been talking a little bit about preparation, right? We want to teach children how to prepare. So when you do that, you should be modeling it yourself. And educating children takes a lot of preparation for it to go well. And so it's important to prepare each night for the next day. And what I highly recommend is that you do an ultra pre-prep day, okay? My ultra pre-prep day was Friday afternoons. After I was done with all my teaching on Friday, I used the rest of Friday, whatever it took me, to plan out every day for the next week. I already had it pretty much planned, but I had to start thinking through all the lessons and what materials did I need and what all was going to happen. What did I need to make sure was there and ready to go so that my following week went smoothly. Okay, so I pre-prepped on Fridays, and then each afternoon when I was done teaching, I would make sure I was prepped again for the day before, make sure I didn't forget something. Okay, it's important because you can do this and still miss things. So, but when you do this, you will miss a whole lot less. And the reason why it's so important to be prepped is that way it doesn't derail the lessons. Derailing the lessons is a nightmare, and it's really it can really decrease your students' achievement. So you don't want to derail their lessons. You want to be as prepared as possible. What do we want to be? Prepared as possible. All right. So do not hit submit yet, but in the Cascade, go ahead and type in which day of the week you're going to do your pre-prep, but don't hit submit until I say submit. Okay. Let's go ahead and type it and wait for me to say go. Okay. Okay, submit. Woo! All right, I'm seeing a lot of Friday, Sunday, Sunday evening. Whoops, I went too far. There we go. On your days off. Yeah, and the days off can change each week. Yes, yes, yes. Saturday night. Okay. Saturdays. Right. This is great. Usually on Saturday morning. Fantastic. Okay, this is great because this is already starting to help you with your mindset. When am I going to prep? I'm going to prep on here. And remember to give yourself some grace, because as time goes on, you may find that, okay, I'm just going to throw one of the days out there. I'll throw Friday out there. Oh, I thought Friday afternoons was going to work for me, but it really isn't. I'm finding I'm more of a Saturday morning person or a Sunday afternoon person or whatever the case may be. Everybody's different. So give yourself grace if your initial pre-prep day just doesn't work for you and you have to pick a different day. But definitely get the bulk of your prep done in one day. All right. So continuing on with helping your student to get prepared, one of the things you should also do is, or I highly recommend, is getting up a little extra early on the day of school days, right? And just make sure everything's ready to go. Just another quick glance over. And that helps. Even if it's just 10, 15 minutes, you can just kind of go over and you have everything in your mind. You're ready to go. It's going to help with the flow. So ready to go to help with the flow. All right. And also keep subjects organized in their own binders. So that starts with you. So with your teaching materials, make sure you keep those organized in their own binders. And then for your students, they're going to learn that themselves. Okay, that, oh, okay, this is, I see, you know, my parent educator doing it this way, and I'm going to do it, maybe a little variation of that, but I'm going to do it for myself too. So role modeling goes a long way. I also recommend that you keep your books, like reading books, organized in baskets by grade level. Okay, so that really helps. I'm sorry, I think I said grade level. I meant reading level, by reading levels. Okay, so if I misspoke, I meant reading levels. Okay, also keep your supplies and resources and everything ready to go in really easy to get to places. Okay, you don't want them put away in a hard place to get to because that might derail your lesson. So make sure they're really, really in an easy to get to place. Maybe you have a special bookshelf that everything you need is right there, ready to go and grab, and you just have it ready to go. And then this is a great anti-procrastination tip for you all. At the end of the day, make sure all pencils and colored pencils are sharpened for the next day. And you might be thinking, what? Why? That sounds kind of silly. Well, I'll tell you what. As a professional educator, I have experienced many students who procrastinate because they suddenly have a broken pencil, and that derails their lesson. It derails. So to keep them on track, make sure you have plenty of sharpened pencils ready to go. In fact, you may put them in charge of sharpening those pencils at the end of the day, and you might see that they have less and less broken pencils throughout the day. So just a little extra pro tip there. All right, so for an application, this is always fun to encourage your students to make a mnemonic for whatever they're learning. So I encourage you to make a mnemonic for daily prep routine, or, you know, so it could be like some words that go with prep, or some words that go with chores, or whatever the case may be. So I challenge you to come up with that, and then think about this for some kind of content area that you're teaching your students, and have them come up with a mnemonic for what they're learning. Okay, so you can work on that as I am forwarding the slides. All right, so this time I want you to go ahead and type out in the chat what your tidy tips are. I want you to type in just one of your all-time favorite tidy tips. So what's a tip for controlling the chaos, controlling the mess? And go ahead and share it in the chat right away. Don't wait for me to say submit. Just go ahead and submit as soon as you've got it, okay? Because we have people that are working on that mnemonic and then people that are still kind of mulling over their tidy tips, okay? I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and I'll come back in about a minute. Okay, I'm back. Wow, everybody take some time to peruse the chat. These are great tidy tips. Super great. I love it. And they start off with people putting in like storage containers and bins. I found personally the 3-drawer plastic bin rolly cart sort of things. Those help me. I still have those all over the place. I think I probably have 8 or 10 of them. I stack them. I take off the I take the wheels off one and I put it on top of the other. You know, you have to make sure it's weighted correctly, but that works. And yes, clean as you go. That really does help. It controls that chaos. And I encourage students to clean up after as they go too, and as young as possible. So starting in TK kindergarten, have them start learning to do that. Yes, different bins for different materials. Yes, 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 baskets, yes. Separate places. These are fantastic. Yes, color-coded items. Woo, I agree. Amberlynn, just so you know, I was so color-coded that even my different subject areas, quite frankly, if I was printing out something on paper, I would even print them off on their color-coded things. So for example, social studies was always green, and I believe science was always blue, and language arts was yellow, and all that. So you get what I'm saying. So I even did that too. So I hear you. Oh, these are so great. These are so great. And I love that you have all these great tips to share with each other. It's always great when we can share our ideas and best practices with each other. Right on. Yes, have snacks and lunch planned also. You're gonna, I think you wrote the section coming up soon. Okay, let's do something fun. And I'm gonna cross fingers that this is working okay today. We're gonna do what's called a word cloud. And this is in your agenda. So it's in your agenda. So you should have your agenda handy for links, remember? So when you think of the word structure, which words come to mind? Which words come to mind? So you're going to go to www.menti.com and you need to use this code. I'll keep it up for just a moment, but go there and type it in. I think they'll let you type up to 3 words that you want to, that remind you of the word structure. What words come to mind when you think of structure? Okay, bear with me while you're doing that. I'm going to try to open up the word cloud so we can see what everybody's been popping in there. Okay, everybody, hopefully you see this word cloud just growing and growing. And the reason why it keeps moving is people are still typing in words. And the words that are larger are the words that are getting entered in more often. So more people have actually entered that word. Yes, take a look at that. How fun, right? We love word clouds. This is a great way to share and actually have a really cool visual from it. So this is really neat. Okay, so let's take a look at some of those words. And let's see, we've got building, organization, organized, routine, order, plan, discipline, planning, building, schedule, yes. Comfort, yes. Yes. Stability, yes. Peace of mind, yes. Oh, boring. Maybe for some, but we're going to talk a little bit more about the importance of structure, because structure does not need to be a negative connotation. For some, it might be, but I want to explain to you why structure is so important. So let me go ahead and get back to our presentation. I'm not sure if it's actually coming up. There we go. I think it is now. All right. Okay. So that was pretty cool. Oh, by the way, before I move forward, let me explain to you a little bit more about that. You can get word cloud devices or different kinds of apps for for word clouds all over the place. This particular one is an answer garden that I used through Mentimeter. Okay. So if you want to use that with your teaching. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about structure. And the reason why structure is actually very positive for students and helping them focus is because structure helps them to be able to be calm and activate their prefrontal cortex in their brain. Okay. Their prefrontal cortex is where the learning happens. It's where the comprehension happens. It's where the learning takes place. So it's really critical that the prefrontal cortex is activated so learning can happen. When learning happens and the brain stays calm, cool, collected, right? Then it can help activate what we call the hippocampus in the brain, right? And it is the hippocampus, and also what we consider the storage unit. And that is where the information can be stored. And then it's there to retrieve later. So do you get what I'm saying? That's comprehension and retention. And that starts with structure because it calms the brain. It gets the brain to not be in the amygdala. When the amygdala is activated, that's basically the fight or flight. And oftentimes we don't even recognize it. We don't know a student is there in fight or flight mode with the activated amygdala. You can't always visibly see it. But when a student knows what's coming up next, what's to be expected, they have an idea, they don't have surprises and so forth, something hitting them sideways all the time, then they can stay calm, cool, collected, and activate that prefrontal cortex where the learning takes place. And that is why structure is so important, so critical for your student success. So, now that you understand the brain-based rationale for that, I'm going to dive a little deeper with that. So earlier I showed you a scheduled template, and you still have this link. It's in your agenda, and you can go ahead and go to that right now and take a look at that. Maybe take a look at the grade level that would be for your students. Okay. And as a pro tip, I want to encourage you to think about scheduling your day in 15-minute increments and using a planner. Use what we call a teacher planner, okay? Because this is really going to be helpful for you. Some of the things you're going to want to plot out first are like snack breaks and movement activities. And you want to be mindful of fun subjects and intense subjects. And sometimes intense subjects are fun. And sometimes lessons are surprising, and most of the time they're engaging. So that part's all good. That's not going to go into the amygdala. That's going to keep the engagement going in the prefrontal cortex. But you need to be mindful of when these are going to happen throughout the day, because you want to make sure you're scheduling a fun lesson or a break around intense lessons. Because remember, I said sometimes intense lessons can be very fun, but students need a break to decompress and digest the information. That is why when I'm teaching these mini workshops over the next 2 days, I'm trying to give you a lengthy break in between purposefully so you can decompress all this information I'm throwing at you, right? I know it's a lot. And I want you to have some time to digest it and think about it, process it, okay? Another thing that's important is observing your student and really pay attention to their most alert times of the day, because those are the times of the day you want to be scheduling intense lessons, fun or not, because that is their time of day that they're going to be able to best grasp those concepts. So if they're intense and maybe extremely challenging, you want to do those at those peak alert times of the day, okay? So you may start off the year thinking, oh, okay, I'm gonna teach math first thing in the morning, blah, 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 and this is how it's gonna happen. And then you are thinking, okay, my most intense lessons of the day for my student, and everybody's student is different, but I'm just saying this as an example, just play pretend here. So let's say that your student really does have math is more intense for them, and you really need to focus like super hard during that time. And you find that their most alert time of the day is like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Well, when do you want to teach math? First thing in the morning when they might not be as alert, or 10 a.m., 11 a.m. when they are way alert, right? Makes sense, right? When you think about it. So observe your students, and not every student is the same. Not every student is the same. And that's one of the wonderful things about being a parent educator for Horizon is you have that opportunity to switch things up a little bit. Whereas like, for example, a traditional classroom teacher with 30 some odd students in their classroom, it's really hard to change their day completely around for one student, right? Yeah, I mean, you can understand how that can be a challenge. Hopefully this will be a lot easier for you. I'm not saying it's a walk in the park easy, but hopefully you'll be able to do it a lot easier than a traditional classroom teacher. So observe, see how they're doing, and be ready to flex your schedule and change it so that you are customizing it for your student. All right, let's decompress a little bit. One way we can decompress and process what we're learning is by doing quick writes. So you've seen how I've set up the notebook pages, right? So I have them very much set up Cornell style. On the right side, you've got your column for questions, then all your notes that you're taking in, and down at the bottom, I always have summary, okay? This is what you want to do with your students. And if they're younger, you will modify this until they're ready to do this themselves. Like when you're TK through third, it's a little bit more challenging to do this, but that's okay. You can still work with it. Okay, you can still work with it. And you sometimes, you know, the application part, you're cutting and pasting things in here. That's okay, all right? But for you, for right now, as the learner, I want you to take a moment to decompress. And in that summary area, write down some aha moments or things you don't want to forget. Okay, jot down questions on the side up there under the question column that you want to make sure you ask later down the road. So take a few moments and do that. I'm going to pause myself for a minute, and I'll be back in just a few moments while you're doing this. Okay, we're going to start moving forward, but I wanted to give you a little mini decompression moment. Okay. All right, let's move forward. What is a learning rich environment and how do I get it? So it's very important that you set up your learning environment for success and you want it to be learning rich. Okay. So on the side, on the left-hand side where we apply it, I want you to know that I'm going to be asking you to doodle out, to illustrate some of the ideas we're going over. All right. So when you see my little graphics here, we're going to pretend that I doodled those. I'm a great artist, aren't I? Actually, my students were very adept at learning how to identify and understand my stick figure doodling. So that's just how it is. All right. So I'm going to want you to be doodling over here on the left-hand side. All right. So as I mentioned, schedule your day in 15-minute increments. That really helps. And when you are starting with your educating, I mean, you probably already know this, that it's highly recommend you start reading to your children, like even when they're like in the womb, really. So you want to start reading to them very early. Make sure you're starting to talk to your children very early about numbers, letters, colors, shapes, very early. So if you have siblings that aren't even enrolled in school yet, start now. Get going on that. You want to start as early as possible and continue the conversations and be putting up posters and pictures and so forth all over the walls, everywhere, that talk about not only the numbers and letters and colors and shapes, but also different concepts that your students are learning. Okay. And with your older students, find ways to discuss their learning with them. Have that open dialogue, non-judgment. Try not to judge. Try to be there to assist and guide. Okay. Because they might be stuck on something. And if they're feeling judged for not getting it, you know what I mean? Like if they don't get it and they're feeling judged and so forth, they may stop talking. So you don't want that. You want to have an open discussion and they need to know that you're there to help them and support them and help guide them and figure out what part they don't get and so forth. And you're there to help. Okay. Also, it's really important to have books available that they can read that explain our world and how things work and all that kind of stuff. Some other great ways to extend the learning rich environment are to take study trips, okay, or online field trips, virtual field trips are called VFTs, and especially the live ones. And we're going to talk more about that over the next couple of days. So study trips, or what used to be called field trips back in the old days, those are great ways to help children just really understand the concepts, to take it in and learn about it, see it, feel it, and hear from others that are teaching them about those concepts. It's a great way to support the learning, okay, to help them understand it better. And it's also a great way to cement the learning. So a lot of times people will take their students that are getting the concepts, they'll take them at the end of a unit to culminate that learning and move on. But if you find that your children might be struggling and it's just not maybe an area that you feel strong in, please don't be shy. Take them somewhere, take them to a museum or take them on some kind of tour or whatnot to help them understand the concept at hand. It's very valuable. And as I mentioned, there are so many virtual online field trips nowadays. Some of them are pre-recorded and some of them are live. So that really helps our students as well. And that's something you'll see through our parent educator department and something that will be discussed quite a bit in your grade level cohorts. We want you guys to feel comfortable planning out together these different kinds of online field trips and maybe even in-person field trips or study trips, right? I slightly touched on visit museums, but museums are really wonderful for helping your students see it, feel it, and comprehend it even more so. But just like a library and other important places, like, you know, when you're taking your children to a museum, make sure you teach them museum etiquette ahead of time, scientist arms and all that kind of stuff. And We don't touch unless we're allowed to touch or until we're told to, and you get it. So we use the proper volume with our voices, indoor voices, and quiet or whisper voices. So important. Okay, so I'm going to have you take a moment to finish your doodling on the left as we move forward. Now, this is a technique that we use with students oftentimes because as they're doodling, they're processing what they just learned. They're thinking more about it. They're having to think a little bit more about it because now they're drawing it out. So it's a great way to digest information, process it, and then apply it in a way that demonstrates they understand what they just learned. All right. Take a few more moments. All right, let's move forward. All right, making lists is a really great technique for teaching students to apply their learning depending on the lesson. So on the left side here, I'm going to encourage you to make a list of supplies that your students need access to each day on the left-hand side. So practice over there this technique that you will find ways to use in different ways, different ways, shape, and form with your students. Okay, so the importance of a dedicated study space. Well, it's important to have a no clutter study space for students. So they, again, activate that prefrontal cortex. When we have chaos and clutter and distractions, well, that oftentimes activates the amygdala. And remember, that's not a good thing when it comes to learning. We want to stay out of the amygdala and stay in the prefrontal cortex, and oftentimes tapping that hippocampus. So it's important to have a clean, clutter-free zone. It's important to have students supplies. They need the proper supplies, pens, pencils, paper, notebooks. They need to have staplers and rulers and all kinds of good stuff to help them with their learning process. And it needs to be readily available so that they're not constantly looking all over for these things, okay? So help them to have these supplies at their fingertips. Students also need structure, as we talked about, and students helping to build the daily agenda can be a great thing. It can be a great motivator and a great positive reward. So sometimes it's a matter of, hey, I'll tell you what, if you get everything done Monday through Thursday, you, student, may help me build our agenda for Friday. You can help build Friday's agenda. That doesn't mean it's just like, a complete free-for-all day. It's okay, student. These are our must-haves. We must, or must-dos. We must do this, we must do that, blah, 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 blah. But you get to choose when we do it, okay? You've earned it. You get to choose when we're gonna do that on Friday. And you get to choose when we're gonna do this, and you get to choose when we're gonna do that. So nothing gets derailed. All the lessons still take place, but your student gets to have that buy-in of earning the reward to set up that daily agenda, okay? Also, it's important to teach students where to put their completed work. Where do you want them to put them? It's actually a life skill that, okay, once you complete that, then what do you do with it, right? That happens in our daily lives as adults as well. So you're teaching them young. So tell them, okay, I want you to put this in a particular folder or in an inbox, or I want you to keep it here at your study space and I'll pick it up later to review, or whatever it is that you want. Give them that idea so they know what to do when they're done, all right? And one of my professional tips is have the semester box, the trimester box, and keep everything that they do for an entire, whatever it is, semester, trimester. And that way at the end, you can go back and see growth. Go back through it with your student and look at the growth they've made over that time period. Another pro tip is do a writing exercise on the first day of school and keep that for the entire year, because sometimes they'll beat themselves up. Hopefully that's not your student, but sometimes they do, and they're like, oh, I don't think I'm a good writer, blah, blah, blah. But when they go back and they look at that writing sample from the first day, they can see the growth they're making. And oftentimes you see this big smile like, okay, yeah, I really am a good writer. And I really am increasing. I am doing pretty good. Okay, I need to give myself some grace because look at how I was on the first day of school. So that's a really good sample. So, and then when you're done with those boxes at the end of the semester, trimester, whatever you decide, then keep some strong samples along with that first day of school writing. Keep some strong samples for a yearly portfolio, okay? And that way they can go back at the end of the year through the whole year and really see their growth. I mean, it's very empowering for a student to see how much they've grown over the year. And this is the best way I have found to do that. All right, binders are your best friend. You're gonna wanna hole punch everything. That's my pro tip. Make sure there's a divider for every important topic. And I'm talking about, this is for your students. And some students should, they should decide what is better. Not some, all students should decide on that. But some actually prefer like a 4-inch binder, and some prefer a smaller binder for each course subject. For the bigger binders, there's always a divider in between each course subject. So let your students pick what feels right for them. All right, here we go. Here's one of my secret weapons for you all. It's called the launch pad. The launch pad. And what you're gonna do here is you're gonna set up an area in your home that is the launch pad area. So if you're leaving for a study trip, or you've got all kinds of activities and appointments or whatnot, and you need to leave the door and on a daily basis, then you've got everything ready at the door. So as you can see, we've got the mom one over here. We've got a fancy one over here. Everybody has their own hook and their own drawers and all that. This one's a little at the bottom. It's a little bit more representative of what I've always used and I still use. I started using it with my own children, encouraged my students to do it, and then I still use it, even though my children are grown adults and gone. So I have schedule right there, calendar and all that. And then, I mean, this one's not mine. It's just a photo that's similar to mine. And then all the important things I need. Mine always would have, and still do, mine always have keys. Actually, I have hooks right here for my keys. And instead of a stroller, my children always put their backpacks. But if your children don't need backpacks, they might have sports equipment or other kinds of, like musical instruments or whatever. This is where they can keep it so it's ready to go out the door. Another tip is encourage your students to set up breakfast the night before, especially if they like cereal. They can get the bowl, spoons, napkins, and cereal out, just nothing perishable, right? So think about those different ways that you can be pre-prepped and ready to go. All right, here we go. We're going to do an organizational chat. Don't hit submit until I tell you to. What are your organizational tips? Give us one. Give us one favorite organizational tip right now, and wait till I hit submit, or wait till I say to hit submit. Okay, submit. Let's see them flood through. Color coding, grouping, cubbies. Yes, easy spot to put things away. Yes, yes, yes. Launchpad, yeah. Label everything color coded. Yeah, prep clothes for the next day. Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's also helpful for adults, just so you know. Separate binders, sticky notes. Oh yeah. I love sticky notes too. And have a spot for everything. Color coding. Oh, these are awesome. Great. Keep them coming. Google Calendar, fantastic. Oh, I just love it when you guys share. It's like ever so often I even get like, ooh, yeah, I love that one too. I'm going to start trying that myself for work. All right, let's go ahead and move forward. Now, in your agenda, you will see that I have these two links here, okay? This is really great. Homeschooling can be challenging, so organization is really going to be the key to your success. So I do actually encourage you to check out the KonMari method. This is the Marie Kondo gal. She's the Sparking Joy gal, and she actually has some advice for homeschoolers. You can simply type in Marie Kondo for homeschoolers. Yes, feel free to take a snapshot of this so you remember later. And again, your links are in your agenda. And so check her out and see what some of her tips are and see if that will help you. Also, Homeschool Super Freak has some great ideas. Then also meals. So this is, I'm giving you some tips on how to keep the household going while you're homeschooling, because it is a juggling act, okay? So I highly recommend you pre-plan your meals, monthly, schedule them out on a calendar, Seriously, I know you might be eye rolling me, but it will save you a lot of time down the road. And then actually prep out your meals on one pre-prep day to try to get as much of it as you can done. So just knowing what you're going to have. And if you have like Taco Tuesday every Tuesday, woo, that helps. And if it's always Thursday leftover day, woo, right on. That helps, right? Because that's just a little bit less for you to think about. Because again, homeschooling, you got to be organized, right? And then for chores, I recommend checking out Fly Lady. Her methods are amazing. I started those with my children when they were super tiny, and we would divide and conquer with the household chores. And yes, they may not have ever cleaned quite the way I really wanted it, but you know what? They were learning life skills, and they were learning to help be a part of our family community, and that we all pitch in and help where necessary. And she just really does it in some fun, unique ways that makes getting clean wonderful. So I want you guys to go ahead and check out these links after this mini workshop. I would normally have you guys take some time to review them right now, but for time's sake, I'm going to have you do that outside. So last but not least, before we close out this mini session, keep your sense of humor, okay? Keep your sense of humor. And I loved this little post from Homeschool Super Freak. It was pretty funny. And as you guys read about Marie Kondo, if you were not aware of her before, you'll really get this later. So keep your sense of humor. All right. So you're going to take a moment right now to summarize some key points that you learned in this presentation. And while you're doing that, jot down right now your code word for this presentation. It is Mexico. Mexico. For the last and final time, your code word is Mexico. You will put that in the feedback form that you will fill out. It's the same link. You just click the different workshop. Okay? So be sure that you are taking some time right now to jot down some key points that we just covered. And I will see you back here at 1 p.m. sharp at the same link. And I know this one was a little bit more of a lengthy workshop for a mini workshop, but guess what? This afternoon's will be super quick. So let me take a look at the comments really quick while you guys are writing. Jody, I see your message about lunch. I don't know how hungry you are, so nourish yourself the way you need to. So you do you. All right, everybody. I will see you back here at 1 p.m. Take care and have a great break.